All right. Who respects Jesus more? The debate between David Wood and Daniel Haqiqatjou. The second of the debates. The first one was Islamic Dilemma, and I made a short video on Islamic Dilemma too. And this was the continuation of the same program, I think, in which they had series of debates. And like Islamic Dilemma, Daniel Haqiqatjou also lost this debate. Uh, I mean, he was totally way off the topic. He didn't know what he was talking about. His opening was not to the point. He was more focused on Palestine. He was more focused on Jews. He was just trying to prove that Jews actually are more disrespectful to Jesus, which makes no difference at all because historically speaking and theologically speaking, Jews never actually accepted Jesus, and Jews do not have a book of their own like Quran, which talks about Jesus and mentions Jesus and talks about his miracles and his childhood miracles and his ability to give life to the clay birds and all that kind of miracles that mentioned in Quran. Jews have like no concept of Jesus and they are reluctant to admit it. So I think it was way off the topic. And then he was trying to lessen the impact. I don't know what he was doing. Maybe he prepared those slides for some other presentation and he's by mistake he started using them and he didn't realize and he started reading all of that. And I think I even don't understand what was at the back of Daniel's mind when he was choosing this topic. Because to my understanding, he was the one who was choosing this topic, that who respects Jesus more. And I don't know what he was trying to prove. I mean, if you are a part of the Abrahamic religions and you are not a Jew, then you are either a Muslim or a Christian, and then you are supposed to respect Jesus. And according to Islamic teachings, if you don't respect Jesus and if you don't acknowledge that Jesus is a prophet, at least according to Islamic teaching, then you are not even a Muslim. And whatever is written in the Quran, you are supposed to stick to it, respect it, acknowledge it, and admit it. And it is a part of your faith. However, I think um, because David was very focused against that wayward opening of Daniel, and all in the middle of that opening of David, he brought in some characters, short holes and loops in the personality of Muhammad by giving details about him leading to the divorce of his foster son's wife and then marrying her and then found in bed with his slave girl Hafsa, and his wives found it, and then he made a promise that he was not going to sleep with her again, and then some uh, other low character acts that he performed, and then Aisha mentioning in one of the hadiths, he gave the reference of that hadith too, that Aisha said that why it is always a revelation which comes in to protect you. Like even when he didn't want to say this to his sahabas to go back home at night when they would come for dinners, and he wanted to sleep with his wives because according to another hadith, he was sleeping in one night and performing his duties of a husband with all of his wives in one night. I don't know how he performed with 9 or 11 in one night. I mean, like if he was even spending half an hour with one wife and in between doing that taharat thing and going to take a bath and get to the other one, not carrying sexually transmitted diseases to the other. But that is a separate topic, and I don't want to be disrespectful with that. My mind is about this, that I don't know what kind of diet was he on, what was his testosterone levels. But anyway, when David mentioned all these things and then mentioned that Aisha also was not very happy about it, that every time he is in a situation, he somehow manages to get a revelation according to his own favor. I think that is where the whole debate just got wavered and it got off track because Daniel got mad. I have been seeing all this for all my life. Then when it comes to Muhammad's respect or something which is related to Quran, and you are talking to even a highly educated person. I don't call Daniel highly educated. I think he's not even an apologist. I think his level is more or less the same as a local mohalla mullah in Pakistan. Street mosque. You have like 50 people going to that mosque, and this guy is just telling stories which are not even mentioned in Hadith. So he's like listening to all the oral tradition stories and just going ahead with all of them. I think just being able to be born in the United States and able to speak American English is not enough qualification for Daniel to be called an apologist. I don't know if I said David, but it was all about Daniel that I was saying. It wasn't David that I meant. So Daniel, I think, is not even an apologist. Daniel, I think, is his level is the level of an ordinary mullah who has a mosque with a congregation of like 40 to 30 to 50 namazis in Pakistan. And he has all those stupid stories to tell, which he learned from his parents and grandparents and people. And they were not even mentioned in any authentic book. So I think he got so mad, just like any other Muslim, and he was not supposed to get mad. Like a good apologist, I admire and respect Shabir Ali for that. You know, whatever he says, his face expressions are always like either he has a very spot face or very poker face. Sometimes there are some emotions which I saw when he was having a debate with David Wood about Jesus going to heaven and asking his father to send someone, which according to David, it was about the Holy Spirit, and Shabir was saying that he was talking about sending Muhammad. And that was the only time I felt that Shabir was uneasy, and that unease was so evident on his face. But Daniel was like, his face was like open reflection of what was going inside his head. And it was all visible on his face. And he was like really pissed. He was angry. He was ashamed. And as I always say, people like Daniel are like in their mind, they want to kill you. But because they're living in a country where you have the freedom of speech, and they use people like Daniel and all the other apologists, they use that freedom of speech to their own advantage by calling Bible wrong, gospel as a corrupted scripture. And then he crossed a line by calling Mary a 12-year-old girl who got pregnant by a Roman soldier, and then she was married away to an old man who was unable to perform his husband duties. And so, so this is like, I don't say he lost the debate the moment he crossed that line, in my opinion. The moment he crossed that line, it was a very weak debate on the other fronts. Like his opening was weak. I'm talking about Daniel. His opening was weak. His argument was weak. He was talking about Jews all the time. He was talking about Palestinians. He was talking about American wars killing Muslims. He was talking about white uh, Christians, white liberal, what are they? White fundamental Christians. Yeah, Republican Christians. That's the right term. White Republican Christian. He talked about Trump. He talked about Epstein files. He talked about everything except talking about uh, the real topic, which was who respects Jesus more. And I think that's one reason that his preparation and his material was not to the point. And then in the middle of it, he got angry, he got carried away by his emotions, and that led to a disaster. And he was calling names for David. He was focused more on David rather than being focused on the topic. He could have done better. I mean, no way I'm going to admit this very fact that Muslims respect Jesus more. I mean, the teachings, the way uh, Jesus is projected in Quran, like some of the people, like I know some people, some clerics in Pakistan, like an engineer Muhammad Ali Mirza, he talks a lot about Jesus and he says there's no other prophet like him. He was born out of immaculate conception. He had the miracles. He was carried to the heavens alive and all that. But in the end, uh, he's not placed higher than Muhammad itself. Shabir, on the other hand, in a debate with I think it was I think it was with Nabil or Yeah, I think it was with Nabil, or maybe there's another guy who Nabil fancied being like. Uh, they talked about it, and somebody from the crowd asked this question, like, with Muhammad never had those kind of miracles like Jesus. He was not born out of a virgin. Muhammad was not did not have those miracles, and Muhammad was not lifted alive. That's the Islamic teaching. Of course, we believe as Christians that he died on the cross and he stayed in the grave for 3 days, and then he was raised from the dead. But and that is something, and we believe that he's a living God. He's the second person of the Trinity. So there's a basic difference. There's a line from where you can cross the respect from where who is respected more. But somebody asked this question to Shabir Ali in one of the debates, and he said, like, how can you place Muhammad ahead of Jesus Christ? And he said, like, he quoted a hadith. I don't know. I never researched it, but I remember what he said. I'm paraphrasing. He said that when this question was asked to Muhammad, like who he thinks is the greatest prophet ever, and he said that it was not wise to compare prophets, but according to Muhammad, he thought that Joseph, was the prophet of the highest ranking because of his pedigree, because of his lineage, because of his parentage, because his Joseph was a prophet himself, and his father was a prophet, and his grandfather was a prophet, and his great grandfather was a prophet. So that makes him like a really prophet of the highest possible order. But in the end, Muhammad again said that prophets should not be compared. But then it's the same question when it was asked to Daniel, that who do you respect more? He had this shame on his face, like embarrassed expression, and then he said, Muhammad, of course. I think he could have done a better job, especially when he was presenting himself and defending the topic which he chose to talk about. And then somebody came in with a three-question thing, and he asked those three questions, and he nailed it. I mean, Daniel lost the debate already by saying all those stupid things about Mother Mary, which is not according to Quran. And now when he is defending a topic, then he's defending a topic who respects Jesus more, and an apologist who is defending that Muslims respect Jesus more comes up with a paltry reference which means no value and places that reference higher than Quran. So what Quran says about Jesus means nothing. And what a book which has no integrity and is not even owned by anybody, I mean, like a scholar who writes something on it, he places that ordinary cheap book right over Quran. And he just destroys not only Quran, he destroys all the teachings of Quran, all the faith system of Quran, and the Islamic theology about Jesus. And that's where he actually lost the whole battle, and the losing this battle is because of the sheer anger that he was in. He was insulting David, he was insulting everybody. He was insulting, which is the typical attitude. Even in my last video, I said that when you are debating with Muslims, uh, it's not very good thing to do to have a debate with them, because in the end they get mad, they get crazy, they get insane, and they just want your head off. And that's the part of the teaching. And that's what he admitted. And when he was asked those questions, he lost everything in those questions. Like there were so many of them, but I've taken a note of a few of them. Like when David in Q&A, there was a still more focused, sorry, Daniel, like why not? I don't know, Daniel David. I'm sorry, David. It's not about you, it's Daniel. So Daniel, he was more focused on David and less on topic. These names, according to Christian, they are both. They are both a very respectful name, and I keep just mixing them up, and I'm so sorry about it. So maybe I've said bad things about David, which I was meant to say about Daniel. But anyway, David, I apologize, man. So Daniel was more focused on David. That's what I mean, and he was less focused on topic. And David responds on questions. Okay, there's one thing I want to really talk about is that David's response to the question on killing of Malachites was really a drag. And I think he acted the way Daniel was acting, like going here and there and trying to cover, like if the Amalekites were, all of them were killed or not. That's not the point. Point was that if God gave the decree and the order to kill all of them, and I mean, there's no escape from that question. So I think David failed to answer that question comprehensively, and he tried to find reasons to. So there's like when I was head of training and development uh, in pharmaceuticals, and I used to teach question handlings, answering the questions, and so there are two ways. One is to answer the question, and the other is to handle the question. These apologists, most of the time, they handle the question, even if it is David Wood. But I mean, if he handled one question, then he answered all the other questions. Unlike Daniel, this time I use the right name, unlike Daniel, who handled all the question and never answered even one question. So, and and you know what, David Daniel, my goodness. In Q&A, when somebody asks this question about the punishment for the apostates in Islam, Daniel actually reluctantly admitted that the penalty and the punishment for the apostates is death. And look at the stupidest reason he gave. He said that because they advertise leaving the religion, which is not good for the religion and for the society. So that's why it is advisable to kill them. So if somebody leaves Islam, he's a bad name and he's a bad advertisement for for Islam. So that's why he is bound to be killed. But what about those people? I grew up in Pakistan when they are then they leave Christianity or Hinduism, and then you bring them to TV and you bring them to social media, and then you bring them to to the mosque, and you use loudspeakers to make announcements, and you put them on a very high platform, and you make them your heroes. Aren't you not advertising? Aren't you not advertising the Christian cricketer famous Yusuf Yohanna converted to Islam? This guy, famous or unfamous, whoever, even if he has no value, he has a value because he is converted to Islam. And the very next day, he has no value. Like one of and that's very true actually. If you convert to Islam in Pakistan, you are a celebrity for a very little time, and then nobody wants to see you. One of my uncle, my father's brother, he converted to Islam, and he married a Muslim woman, and then he and his kids, they don't want to tell anybody that they were Christians once. They don't even meet us. He came to my father like 10 years ago, and he told him that he wanted to sever all the ties with our Christian family because he doesn't want anybody to know that he was a Christian once. So how you are ashamed. That's how you are not want to be advertised. But when somebody converts to Christianity, then you advertise. So if advertising is such a big sin when you leave Islam, why advertising is such a big promotion when you accept Islam? So I think, like I always say, Muslims are the biggest hypocrites, and Daniel is proving all of that. As I said, Daniel made the biggest mistake was Daniel um, casting stones and insults to Mother Mary and coming up with a reference that actually killed it. That actually killed it for Daniel because it was absolutely against the teachings of Islam and Quran, and that absolutely showed that they have no respect. I mean, technically, he called Nauz billah in Islam. Nauz billah, he called Jesus a a bastard. And from where I think if he were in Pakistan and the situations were reversed, and he was a Christian who said something about Muhammad, like David said that he was caught having sex with a slave girl, or he married a 9-year-old girl, or he actually made his foster son divorce his wife so that he could marry her. I mean, you cannot walk out of that building alive. You will be burned alive. And and this is like calling Jesus a bastard, and there's no blasphemy about it. And I mean, like insulting Mother Mary like this. I mean, if there was something, a reference from Quran, I would say, okay, that's part of your faith and that's part of your belief, but this is not part of your faith and belief. And Daniel is the example of he is, I think, is the Calvin of incompetence. And I think people like him are really, really, we need more people like him who could actually destroy Islam and lose every debate so that Christian apologists could have a higher stature because they've been losing in the past to all the debates. And this new breed of apologists, Christian apologists, thanks to them, that they have just tried to reestablish something for Christianity. Coming towards the end, at Q&A, there was this guy, I think his name was Eric. Yeah, I think his name was Eric. He came up and he asked him 3 questions, and Daniel did not understand the trap. And he was boxed. He was nailed absolutely, and it was the last nail in his coffin to lose the debate. The guy came in and asked him, like, who do you respect more? Who do you place higher, Jesus or Muhammad? And Daniel said, Muhammad. And then said, who do you place higher, Muhammad or Allah or God? And he says, God is creator, so God. And then he said, okay, according to Christian teachings, Jesus is the second person of Trinity, which means he's the creator. So where would you place? Who would you place higher, the prophet or the creator? And he said, creator, of course, the Allah. So, like, if this is the third question's answer, is the faith and the belief of all the Christians. Like they think that Jesus, they believe, not only think. I'm sorry. They believe that Jesus is the second person of the Trinity. Jesus is God and Jesus is the creator. So if Jesus is the creator, he is higher than the prophet. And if he's higher than the prophet, he is God and he's the creator. And if I believe, or any Christian believes, that he's the creator, and creator has to be respected more, then Christians also respect Jesus more. Christians also respect the deity of the Jesus and place him higher than any other prophet. And that's the reason that they respect Jesus more. And nobody can else respect Jesus more than Christians. So that's where it should have ended. But I know that after that thing, what Daniel said about Mother Mary, and that stupid nonsense thing that he said, the debate just got and people got emotional. They started saying shame, shame to him, and he should be ashamed of himself. He should go wash his face and bury himself somewhere else. That's all I have to say. At the end of, I would say that David did a great job, and David has been doing a great job. And I think he and his team with AP, they are doing an excellent job in exposing people like uh, Hijab and people like what is Ali Dava or people like Yasser Qadi. And I think these people are really amazing, and I wish that they could grow more. And my prayers and my heart always goes out for them. Thank you very much. Have a good day.